That's right, we're going to talk about the canon of the Wario games. Where'd my filing cabinet go? Alright, we already know this little freak was introduced in Super Mario Land 2. He used a full-on alien invasion just to become a house squatter. Since then, he's popped up helping Mario take back Peach's castle, and his baby self helped Yoshi during one of the Yoshi Islands. Yoshi's Island? The elf guy was super popular within the company and got the upgrade from Antag to Protag with his very own series. After getting a taste of the privileged life in Mario's castle in the in-name only prequel, Mario Land 2, Wario decides he simply can't live without his own castle. So, while practicing being mean, which, you know, it's something every well-adjusted person does. Hello, is there a bozo there? Then who picked up the phone? I'm so fucking sorry. Anyway, he's practicing being mean and then just happens to remember a rumor about a group of pirates stealing a statue of Princess Peach. He figures this thing could sell for enough to pay for a brand new castle. So, you know, naturally goes to take on these brown sugar pirates at the kitchen aisles. I don't know, Wario. After checking Zillow, a solid gold statue of a princess will only get you about 1,000 square feet. As a one-man wrecking ball, he trashes the island and loots the pirates of their treasure before confronting the leader, Captain Syrup, and her genie. After a couple of bonks, Syrup decides to just blow the joint, revealing a statue in the wreckage of her castle. Alas, it wasn't meant to be anyway, as Mario swoops in and steals it back in his, trademark helicopter. Luckily, Wario held on to the genie's lamp and wished for a castle instead. But it turns out this genie has discovered capitalism, and depending on how much Wario collected depends on the quality of his castle. These range from a small birdhouse all the way up to his own little dwarf planet with his face on it. Now, future games show Wario living in the castle from the second best ending, which leads me to believe that, canonically speaking, Wario's a quitter. Not satisfied with the castle, Wario decides to expand out to the peaceful woods, taking over with some monster friends of his and renaming it Wario's Woods, which, it's the name of the game. A sprite of the forest seeks out Toad and Birdo, in this game going by the name Catherine. I choose to believe that this is her actual name, and everyone calling her Birdo is just really rude, but this also proves Birdo exists outside of Subcon. Anyway, the sprite can make bombs, and Toad uses those bombs to explode the invading species and Wario's pals until he finally confronts the big man himself and blows up his castle. Also, the ending text implies that Wario had the invading species under a spell, and defeating him broke his control, but what about the literally thousands of dudes Toad's already exploded? Anyway, there's different versions of the game on the NES and SNES, and each has a different set of baddies, with the SNES version having an expanded story. The SNES version just adds a few more locations, and the bosses have a bit more personality added. I'd probably count the SNES one as canon, but I don't think it really matters. None of these bosses have appeared in any game since. Next up, we got Wario Blast featuring Bomberman, which is just a weird way of saying Game Boy Bomberman featuring Wario. Yeah, this is a Bomberman game through and through, and the only thing that says Wario about this is you either play as him or you fight robots that look like him. This was originally the first game in the handheld Bomberman series, but when it came to localizing it, Hudson looked to Nintendo to help with sales and just slapped Wario's big stinky mug on it. So, what does this mean for the story? Well, taking a page out of the laziest fanfics, Wario just finds an interdimensional portal to Bomberland and decides to enslave the poor robos. Now, the game allows you to play as either Wario and attempt to conquer the planet, or as Bomberman himself to defend it. This changes absolutely nothing. You go through the same stages, fight the same bosses, and even see the same ending cutscene. It literally only swaps the sprites between the player and enemies. In either game, you never even see the opposite character. Only mad bombers that take on their appearance. Anyway, it doesn't really matter who's picked, as no matter what, it ends with Bomberman driving his motorcycle through the canyons of Planet Bomber, with Wario chasing him forever until you shut off the Game Boy. Now, which playthrough is canon? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. The game is presented from Wario's perspective, and the ending cutscene is just Wario catching up to Bomberman in the end. I'm going to assume he did not succeed in taking all the Mad Bombers back to MK, but maybe he found a healthy supply of bombs to take home and a sick new hog to ride. Wario next decides to go on vacation to the Awazon River Basin. Because he's really made that whole upside-down M thing his whole personality. But in 3D! That's right, one of Wario's accomplishments is being 7.14% of the entire Virtual Boy's game catalog, joining the likes of Kevin Costner. While relaxing, he notices some little dudes bringing in their property and decides to just follow them right into their home. Now, the manual is written from a first-person perspective, from Wario, and so he claims that they proceed to jump him. But the game's version of events show him coming in from behind and body-slamming them. Not satisfied with assault, he sets his eyes on burgling their gold when a trapdoor drops him down into a huge cave system. Undeterred, Wario just decides to loot from the inside out, culminating in him releasing a demon genie. and depending on the ending, purchases a new ride from the beavers that disturbed him in the first place, or if he collected all of the treasures, they act as a set of keys for the vault, allowing him to fly his way out on a magic carpet with the genie's bottle and potentially a cute bunny girl. The third Wario Land game, which is number 2, but also maybe Super Mario Land 5, is basically the same plot of Mario Land 2, except Wario is the one getting kicked out of his castle. Captain Syrup and the formerly Brown Sugar, now Black Sugar gang are stealing back their treasures, along with everything else Wario owns. To keep him off their backs, they flood his castle, throw a snake in his treasure room, and, just to be dicks, they hide an alarm clock that just won't stop going off. After clearing this up, he chases the pirates away from his castle, onto their ship, the SS Teacup, then through a forest, the city, and finally back to Syrup's castle. Wario collects his treasure and defeats Syrup, blows up her castle again, and makes his way back home. The end. 50%? We're only halfway through? Yeah, so just like the other Wario Land games, we have multiple endings talked about, and these are more complicated. Now, we have complete branching paths in the story, with each one having unique endings. The first of these branches is before even the first level. See, if you don't press anything on the controller, Wario will just sleep through the alarm. Eventually, the pirates will just drag his sleepy ass out and take over the castle. From here, Wario wakes up, charges back in, and defeats Syrup right in his own home, bypassing a majority of the game. The second branch has Wario going past the giant snake in his cellar, letting him catch up with the pirates and follow them through an underground cave system all the way to the woods, skipping his trip on the ship. Speaking of, a third branch exists where Wario just sinks the ship instead of defeating Bobo the boss. Wario goes down with the ship and chases the BSG. What the? Oh, Black Sugar Gang. Okay, I can read my notes. Through a lost underwater civilization, where Syrup is captured by this cute little bubble guy. Wario saves her and takes his treasure back. Wario can also finish things early by defeating Syrup in the factory downtown for a fourth ending. And finally, he can bypass fighting this Space Jam cosplayer to lead Syrup into a haunted house where she's captured by a ghost. Defeating the ghost, Wario attempts to get his treasure, but ends up falling through a trapdoor only to wake up safely in his bed, with the pirates just arriving to begin their initial heist. Implying, at least, that this entire branch is some sort of precognitive dream. So, aside from the ghost ending, all of the branches have roughly the same outcome, with the difference only being on when and where he catches up to Syrup. But there is one final ending. If Wario collects every treasure, every ending, and every panel of this treasure map, he will use it to decipher the location of Syrup's secret stash for one final haul. So, which ending and branch is the canonical one? Well, if the final level is canon, then that could rule out the main ending, as Syrup's castle explodes during that, and yet is shown just before Wario enters her secret cave. The next time we see Syrup, she also has a new ship, meaning the SS Teacup could still be down at the bottom of the ocean. But I'm honestly leaning toward the cop-out answer of all of them being canonical. Everything else must be done before the final level can be unlocked, and it's not exactly out of the question for Mario series villains to attempt the same plan multiple times in a row. It's very possible Black Sugar Gang just ransacked Wario's home 4 times, and it caused Wario so much stress that he had a nightmare about it happening again. So, yeah, mystery solved. Moving on to the third Wario Land. This one's a little more straightforward story-wise. Wario's flying his plane for fun when the engine inexplicably starts to sputter and he crashes in the middle of the woods. He finds a cave with a cool little music box, but he ends up getting sucked into it. A mysterious figure claims to be the god and protector of the world inside the music box, but his power has been sealed away, in keeping with the theme, 5 other music boxes. The figure asks Wario to find the other music boxes to help release him, promising he can keep any treasure he finds on the way. So Wario scours the land for treasure and the music boxes to help his new friend. He returns with all 5 only to find out that the mysterious figure is really an evil clown god named Rudy that now wants to both kill Wario and take over the world outside of the music box. So Wario makes the clown punch himself until he's defeated. Doing so turns all of the monsters in the music box back into real people. Apparently they were the ones that sealed away his powers, but he was able to curse them one last time. Thankful for his help, the music boxians send Wario out of the music box along with all the treasure he plundered. A year later, and we got Wario Land 4. Similar to the last game, it's pretty self-contained. Wario reads about an ancient pyramid where a princess from the region was sealed by an entity known as the Golden Diva. Only caring for the treasure within, Wario takes off in his Wario car. If anyone asks, I have a Robbie car. Nearly splatting a cat on the way. Once he arrives at the pyramid, the same cat leads him down into its inner chamber. From here, Wario loots each passage, meeting up with one of the enemies from the last game, Mad Scienstein. So I guess he also escaped the music box. Collecting treasure and beating bosses opens up the entrance to the inner pyramid, which turns out holds the Golden Diva herself. The cat from earlier takes a swipe at her only to be absorbed into the Diva spirit. Wario promptly defeats the Diva, which causes the pyramid to begin collapsing. He of course makes it out with all the loot, including the 4 legendary treasures which began to transform the cat into the Princess Shokora, the one from earlier. Remember that one? The princess's physical appearance depends on how much treasure Wario collected, going on a scale from Ponyo to Nazca with a little Wario in between. After leaving Wario with a kiss, she seemingly ascends to the afterlife, while Wario drives home to all-you-can-eat steaks. The difficulty you play on determines what car Wario drives during the ending. Normal is probably the canon choice. I don't think the truck or hover car ever appear again. And I mean, he drove a standard car there, so what else would he drive? According to the North American manual, the game actually takes place on its release date of November 19th, 2001. A few years later, and Wario's now living in Diamond City, possibly the same city we saw him leave at the beginning of the last game. The first of a brand new series, WarioWare, showcased Wario's greed by having him become a game publisher. After seeing the success of the brand new Nintendo Game Boy Advance system on sale now, he goes through the same trajectory high school Robbie went through and attempts to learn how to code, puts in the bare minimum amount of effort, and then gets bored. Instead of completely giving up, however, Wario outsources all the hard stuff to his friends while he just sits back and collects. The game takes a bit of an anthology approach to storytelling from here, with each one of his friends having a small self-contained day-in-the-lifestyle tale, where the microgames played during each are representative of the games they developed for Wario. For example, Wario's story has him get trapped in his boombox, and the microgames played all include Wario in some way, showcasing his narcissistic behavior. Meanwhile, newcomer Mona's story involves her speeding on the way to work, getting into a high-speed chase with around 20 cop cars, and then using her animal friends to knock them off the road, because she has a good work ethic. Eventually, the game is released, and in what's probably the most realistic ending, Wario runs off with all the cash. And in an unfortunately unrealistic twist, he gets hit with a rocket and loses all the cash in the ocean. One last thing to note here is that Nintendo exists within the Mario world. The company name has popped up here and there in other games, but WarioWare shows that they do produce video games, including Mario and Wario games. The kid 9volt even says he's a fan of Wario because of his games in the manual. So, I guess Nintendo makes biographical games in this world? Also in 2003, Wario made the jump from land to world. He's just finished the construction on his new castle, presumably with whatever cash he was able to salvage from WarioWare. But it turns out one of the gems in his treasury was actually an evil demon that nearly destroyed the world in the past. Simple mistake. Everyone's made it. It was originally sealed by a race called the Spritelings, and Wario just happened to free it with his treasure hunting. Now it's reawakened and has transformed his castle and turned all of his treasure into enemies, which Wario must defeat to turn things back to normal. He can also optionally save the Spritelings that seal the jewel away to begin with. After Wario beats the jewel, the Spritelings will rebuild his castle, the quality of which depends on how many little dudes Wario saved. Without any real evidence to anyone in particular being canon, I'll just default to the best ending, which really just puts Wario back where he was at the start of the game. WarioWare Inc. Mega Party Game Ching sound. There's a dollar sign, so I'm putting a ching sound effect there. Has no plot, so it's not important to us. No, technically there's a series of short animations tucked away in the menu that show the alien Orbulon getting a taxi ride, but yeah, that's it. In Twisted, Wario smashes his GBA in a rage and forces his friend Dr. Krygor to fix it. Tosses it in a sci-fi machine and it spits out a new system that's controlled by tilting. Just like last time, Wario sees this as an opportunity for making a hit game, and all the other employees have their own small side adventures. The music box and a picture of the Golden Pyramid from Wario Land 3 and 4 are visible in Wario's house too, so that's continuity. Nice. WarioWare Touch. Yeah, same as before. Wario steals an old man's DS and makes a touchscreen base game. New console, new WarioWare. This time's a little different, as there's no framing device of Wario making a game. Apparently, in the past, a Wii remote-like rock was a revered object by a race known as Splunks. This form baton, as they called it, was left in a temple until modern times. I guess the Splunks eventually got hungry and raid Wario's house, causing him to chase them to their temple and steal the baton. After this is the standard WarioWare anthology stories, until eventually the Splunks chase him down and force him to give back the form baton. It also might be implied that the Splunks/form baton have extraterrestrial origins. As an Orbulon story, he's hit with the balance stone, the nunchuck basically, it's just a nunchuck. And bringing both together causes the temple to travel through space. Taking a break from WarioWare for a bit and going back to Wario's thieving roots. Kind of. Wario Master of Disguise opens with Wario watching a TV show about a master thief, when he decides to just build a helmet that lets him enter the TV show. It's that simple. The master thief, Count Cannoli, has a wand that gives him anime magical girl powers that Wario steals for himself. So we go through a grand adventure with some twists and turns about a magical wish stone and a princess that turns out to be a demon that's trapped in the wish stone, and it's all well and good, except it's all just inside the TV show. So at the end, Wario tries to bring all of his accumulated treasure back to the real world, but he can't, because it's just TV treasure. So once again, we're just right back where we were at the beginning. Super Mario Land 8, Wario Land 6, Shake It. You might notice a pattern here, but Wario again goes to an alternate dimension to hunt down treasure and inadvertently saves the local population. This time, the Shake dimension is in peril by the Shake King, who has stolen a Shake Sack that generates infinite Shake wealth when you, what's the word? It's like what you don't want to do to babies. That'll come to me. Anyway, Captain Syrup witnesses this, but only because she was in the middle of stealing the artifact housing the Shake dimension from— oh, Shake It, that's what it is. Wanting the treasure, but being even lazier than Wario, she decides to mail him the globe and get him to defeat the king for her. Willing to do anything for the sack, Wario travels across the dimension to defeat the king. In the end, he takes the sack back to his home, only for Syrup to suck it right out of his hand. Alright, there's nothing but WarioWare from here on out, so strap in. WarioWare snapped. Wario opens an amusement park with a few of his game devs. That's it. Literally nothing else. By the way, these are kindergartners, and so most likely illegally employed. What am I saying most likely? Definitely illegally employed. By the next game, WarioWare DIY, most of WarioWare employees have left for rival company Diamond Software. So Wario uses Dr. Krygor's new invention, the Super Maker-Matic 21, and hires you. No, not you. I mean me. I mean the player. To pump out poor quality games for him. I mean, let's be honest, they probably weren't good. We can also play some games made by the other characters using the same tools the game uses, so that's kind of neat. Game & Wario follows the same formula as the early WarioWare titles. A Wii U-like system is new, and Wario and friends each individually get ideas to make games for it. Wario's pirate game is a pretty big success. He gets attacked by a flash mob, and then everyone goes out for bowling. After finishing his most recent heist of a pot from Luxville, it turns out Wario has finally gone broke. So moving on from game dev, he decides to host an esports tournament instead to try to suck as much money from his city's residents as possible. Needing games to play at the tournament, though, he calls up all the usuals and convinces them to make games for him. But really, Gold is a compilation release, so they've all just remade their games from the older titles. Throughout the tournament, a young girl named Lulu is seen stalking Wario and eventually, at the end, attacks him to take back the pot Wario stole at the beginning. Apparently, it's actually the community toilet, and Lulu just wanted her village to be able to shit once again. After learning the truth about the pot, Wario gives it back and attempts to run off with the rest of the cash before being stopped by the crew and being forced to split it equally. WarioWare, get it together! During the release window of a new game, Super Puro, WarioWare has once again finished their own game. But while Wario is testing it, a bug occurs and everyone gets sucked into the system. While in the console, they attempt to manually debug it by physically attacking the game bugs and eventually find an entity known as the Supreme Developer. The Supreme Developer reveals that he's the one that brought everyone in the game to help with the debugging process, and with the bugs fixed, he'll send them all back. Once back in the office, Wario reveals that his lazy coding was the reason for the bugs in the first place, and before the rest of the team can attack him, he points out that 3 of them, Red, Master Mantis, and Lulu, are still missing. Reluctantly jumping back in their game, they hunt down the 3 friends, finding out that the kidnapper was really Puro. He was simply bored from his own game and decided to jump ship. Finally, we have WarioWare Move It. Wario sees an advertisement for a sweepstakes for an all-expenses-paid vacation with an entry given for every garlic burger he purchases. So he purchases 50. Wario's angle coefficient is unusually high for his income, and that joke is way too smart for me. I didn't actually write it. That's actually just in one of the manuals. I can't take credit for it. He ends up winning, but much to his dismay, it includes tickets for 20 others to join, and the rest of the gang come along. So this game is meant to be a sequel of sorts to Smooth Moves, and so we have a few of the same things going on. When Wario gets to the island, he is offered Form Stones, which are shaped exactly like Joy-Cons, and offer the same gameplay purpose as the Form Baton. And we even get a little more evidence that they're not from Earth, as the deity the islanders worship for bringing them the stones looks to be of the same race as Orbulon. The usual WarioWare things happen, with the characters each having their own little self-contained stories, and it all culminates with Wario stealing a statue of their holy deity, breaking an ancient seal. This causes Wario to become fused with the island volcano on the brink of erupting, and the only way to undo the curse was for everyone to dance with their form stones. Wario's blasted out, ends up replacing the statue he attempted to steal, and is worshipped by the islanders. Alright, 21 games down. How are we doing this? Well, luckily, each of the WarioWare titles kind of build off of each other. If a character is introduced in one game, they pretty much appear in all later titles. If something changes in one game, it stays consistent later on. A good example is Dr. Krygor. He frequently changes appearances due to his inventions, and these changes stick around from game to game. So thankfully, all of the WarioWare games can be placed in release order. That's a big chunk we don't have to worry about. Now, as far as the Wario Land games go, one has to be first. It introduces both Captain Syrup and Wario's Castle at the end. I'm very tempted. I am so tempted to put Wario Land 3 before 2. They share virtually nothing except for Wario, and Wario's actually missing a lot of the abilities he had in 2 at the beginning of 3. He only gains these abilities from the treasures he finds throughout the music box. So it's really a matter of if you consider this a diegetic thing or not. 3 and 4 have to occur prior to WarioWare Twisted, as the music box and a photo of the pyramid appear in Wario's house. And speaking of tying Land to Where, in Land 4, Wario is leaving a city at the beginning of the game, which is most likely Diamond, as he's also driving the Wario car, which Krygor claims he built in the manual for the first WarioWare game. But if we're taking manuals as canon, remember that the manual for Wario Land 4 states that it takes place on November 19th, 2001, and the copyright date on Wario's new PC he bought at the beginning of the game is in 2003. Now, why did he move to Diamond City in the first place? Probably because Toad just blew up his home in Wario's woods, which would place it most likely between 2 and 4. Now, you might be tempted to throw Wario World in before his game-making life with the other Wario lands. Except, WarioWare games actually appear within Wario World. And what I said earlier about him building his castle with WarioWare funds was true. Wario had a diary on the Japanese Nintendo site around the time WarioWare came out and claimed he had a secret castle built after the events of the game. The diary also puts the in-universe release date of WarioWare as Friday, March 21st, 2003, which is just the Japanese release date of the real game too. So that's convenient. Shake It, Master of Disguise, and Blast are so disconnected from the rest of the series I'm willing to put them right when released. Maybe he got his bike from Bomberland, which would place it prior to any WarioWare games anyway. As far as connecting this to the grander Mario side of things, WarioWare Gold features amiibo functionality, which comes in the form of Wario drawing the character. Wario recognizes the wedding outfits from Odyssey, so Gold is at least after that game. Other than that, we can just use the microgames 9V makes as a good placement for the series. For example, there's a Sunshine microgame in Smooth Moves, so we know it takes place after Sunshine, which, what do you know, places them right in release order. So, that's it for Wario, and I think I now know where to find him.
Get out of my Switch, you son of a... Hello? You have my kidney. I thought Wario stole it. What do you mean Wario's not real? Oh, I sold it to buy Wario games. Why don't I remember this? I used what for anesthesia? Huh. Is that why I had a weird dream about a gorilla and a baby? They hung up. Man, what a lousy Christmas. No chair, no kidney. Spent all my money on games I'm done hyperfixating on, and now I found out Wario doesn't even exist. My kidney, or at least a kidney. Either way, it'll work. He exists. Wario exists.
Hi everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, you know the standard YouTube etiquette, all that stuff. I don't need to teach you about that. The most helpful thing you could do is just spread the word. Tell your friends, your loved ones, your boss. They might enjoy it. I don't know. But yeah, I also have a Patreon, and from there I'd like to thank Citrus Shy Gal, Dragon Reach, and Julian. Thank you so much for supporting me, and I'll see everybody in the next video. Bye.